trailer of this report at the last meeting of full council, and I'm very pleased to set out here more clearly the process and the timescales about the development of the local plan. You'll see from the report when it lists the timetable on page 141 that the first big milestone coming up is an issues and options paper which will be coming forward in February next year, and that's going to be a very high level discussion, and it's going to focus on 4 planks and sort of central baskets of issues. Place, what do we want Thurrock to look like in the years to come? Housing, what is the mix, the type, the style of housing that we would like to see coming forward? Jobs, how do we get more jobs that Thurrock people can benefit from? And infrastructure, how do we mitigate some of our existing infrastructure deficiencies, but also make sure that any new development that comes forward is matched with appropriate infrastructure. We've obviously done some work on this before from previous consultations, and there's been work done on this as part of the Fairness Commission, which will also report to the time to feed into the process. There will also be a number of other statements, again, as you can see through the report. So sort of contemporaneously with the issues and option papers, we'll be looking at design policy, which we've talked about before in this chamber. I think very important in setting the parameters of what we would like Thurrock to look like in years to come, and to set the minimum standards that we expect developers to take when they're building in our community. There'll also be, following the initial issues and option paper, which is around the big questions about vision and place, a more site-specific one that's coming forward in October and November 2016. As I'm sure you can no doubt imagine at present, the continued uncertainty over the future of the Lower Thames Crossing makes any site-specific discussion quite difficult, as we still don't know, frankly, whether that's going to happen. And I think there's been a certain amount of, no, that was recorded, a certain amount of blindness and sensitive debate about the Lower Thames Crossing of late from certain quarters, and actually we need to remember this is something that will fundamentally affect the lives of many, many Thurrock residents, but unalterably and dramatically change the geography of the borough, and that needs to be taken into account. All of this will be accompanied by extensive consultation with both council members and with the public. And if I can point your attention to, I think it's on my head, Appendix 3, which details some of the actions that we're taking to ensure that communities are consulted. I've been very clear in my tenure as a portfolio holder and beyond, when I was on the planning committee and just the kind of angry person talking about this, how important it is that we bring the community into this process, because there are decisions here that fundamentally affect the future of this borough. And residents have to be a partner in that decision. They can't just be a bystander. So if you look at some of the workshops that we're planning to bring young people into the debate who sometimes aren't as well represented in our discussions around planning as other groups, we're looking at how we can do a residents forum, work with people in workshop formats in order to highlight some of the constrained choices that we have in our current situation, but also what ways that we can go forward, and also focused work on businesses again, who are a very important voice to have at the table. I think that's all very encouraging and a step change from some of the previous planning decisions that you see, not just in this borough but elsewhere, where residents aren't the first person that gets spoken to. And I say again at this stage, as I've said at every other stage, it is vitally important that when there is the opportunity to be a consultee, when things come to you in your emails asking to comment, please do, because this is the document that will determine Thurrock's future geography. It's all well and good in 2021 turning up and saying I didn't like that planning application and putting in a petition if you'd ignored the email in 2017 saying what do you think of this site, because this is when the policies are set that will determine the future of Thurrock. With that ringing call to action, I will take any questions.
I know we've been trying to get a local plan since 2006, and because of the government's interference and just changing goalposts, we're having to respond. And obviously, what we've got to try and do, Leader, is really stick to these timetables, because the 5-year supply is so essential. Unless we have that 5-year supply and those site allocations all wrapped up, we stand very little way forward in defending the green belt that will be left if this government goes ahead with the Lower Thames Crossing east of Thurrock.
I think that's a really important point. Not having a secure plan leaves us at the mercy of speculative approaches from developers. We have to be the ones that shape the future of the borough. We've got to be the ones who set that plan and that framework very, very clearly.
But I just again want to welcome this process thing. Having had a number of discussions in planning over the years, and in particular in West Thurrock, where the nature of the area I think has changed dramatically over the last few years, but actually our local plan doesn't really reflect the nature of the developing community. I think this is an immensely important process for us to go through, and it's immensely important, as Councillor Spate says, that we do talk to communities to understand what their priorities are in terms of future development, and make sure that we lobby for and secure the kinds of plans for our local communities that we want to see. And I think that will really make sure that when we have those kind of planning related discussions in future, actually we've already preempted those by setting up how we want our borough to develop. And I think that's an immensely important process. I think it's very welcome and needs to be done.
And again, when we do something, we generally do it pretty well when we're engaging with our communities. And I say that because of the plans for the regeneration of Civic Square that's been going on over the last 2 weeks. And it's been based in the library, it's been well attended. And they was there on Friday night when we got to switch on the lights in the town. And I was there when a resident said, can we have it on the website? You know, lots of people would still like to be able to comment on this rather than it disappear. And the officers picked up with that straight away. It's now on the website within 2 days of residents, you know, and again, it's about engaging with these residents to give them exactly what they wanted, you know, and people are really, really quite enthused about something's going to happen in the town, and it's going to be good things that happen, and they're having a chance to say yes or no on a lot of that stuff, you know, and it's not, and I always say I hate it when communities feel done to, and that's why I try to lead wherever I can on consulting with communities about changes to housing, to their communities, to regeneration, the jobs that are going to be coming on board, you know, what we see down at the industrial park, the Port Industrial Park. Really, again, it's about making sure that communities have every opportunity, and we have got so many people that are working there. We also need to look and engage with, so we haven't got 40% of the jobs. How do we upskill people for that 40% of the jobs so that they don't go outside of Thurrock, you know? So it's about engaging and making sure that we're prepared and that we build those houses that they do need, you know, looking at the local needs survey that's come out in the plans and the survey that we've done in housing, and joining all of those up and making sure that everybody realises what's happening. So well done on a really good document.
Councillor Barbara Rice.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Lynn says around the consultation with residents, which is so important, because otherwise residents really often don't understand the difference between building land and greenbelt and brownfield sites, etc. And so everyone becomes a kind of protest and a petition, and you know, even though it may not be winnable in some instances, or sometimes it is winnable and yet there isn't a protest against it, so it's very muddled for the community, not really understanding. So with the consultation, I hope that, and I'm sure it will be, Richard, very clear for residents to understand that things in the plan are there because that is the plan for Thurrock. They have an opportunity to speak on that and to shape their Thurrock. But then when builds do come up and they're in the plan, then it isn't about protesting at that time, because it feels almost like that is what we have at the moment. Every site that comes up, whether it's building land, whatever it is, we've got protests against it, you know, and problems that arise from that, because obviously people don't feel fully consulted at the moment.
Richard, a range of comments there, so I'll ask you to sum up.
Gerard's point, yes, keeping this on timetable is vitally important, and then go straight into your point, John, and Gerard's point as well, that without a robust local plan that's got support of community has got the support of the council, we are at the mercy of developers when they come forward and bring forward applications. And what I don't want to see happening, which I think has happened in the past, again, not just here but in other local authorities, is this constant chipping away. We need to be the ones driving the conversation about what Thurrock's going to be like in 2035, 2050, 2070, us and the community together. When it comes to consultation, I think this is a really robust set of documents and goes miles beyond what we're statutorily required to do in terms of notifying people and bringing them into the process. And the workshop format and the forum formats that have been talked about are very important because, as Barbara says, you know, quite often residents aren't familiar with the planning system. It is incredibly complicated, the balance between what's a national government policy, what's local policy, what's a material consideration, and quite often as a veteran of the planning committee, people come with objections like this might affect the value of my house and so on, that just aren't material and can't play into the decision. And we don't want that to happen. We want people to be trained up. The term was used earlier on tonight, but I'm going to use it again, planneracts who understand the system, who can come and object cogently when they need to. And so that is a really important part of this workshop process. Yes, we can't wait for people to just turn up at our door and come to us. We need to go to them, to where people are having these conversations, and talk to them in forums in which they're already talking about the future of where they live. And that's quite important. And I will, again, end on my call to action. There are councillors up here, there are councillors in the audience, there are people who, Mr. Perry, who come to so many meetings, they may as well be councillors. You are advocates in the community for this kind of change. We want people to be involved, we want people to take part, and it's going to be starting very soon. So with that, I'll move recommendations 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
We all agree?